Okay, so now we're going to talk about writing results for post hocs. Okay, so for post hoc, we found, with our ANOVA that it was significant. Okay, now we're going to scroll down and look at post hoc, and I've already run them, so we're not going to work through running them. This is just for writing results. But we run post hoc tests only when the ANOVA is significant. Okay, if we had found that our ANOVA results were not significant, we would stop at the sentence results were not significant and report, just like we did here, our F and our P, and then we would stop. But because we have significant results, we have to keep going, and we have to run a test, which is the post hoc test, that tells us where the differences are. So when we do this, we pick a Scheffé post hoc test because it compares each group to the others. And it's once you get the hang of it, it's a little more easy to read. So what we're going to look at here, the way that I explain this is we think of this as a subtraction problem. Okay, so what we're looking at here is you can see that this post hoc has compared couples to individual, couples to control, then it comes down and it compares individual to couples again and individual to control. It compares each one to the others, okay? So let's start here. The way that I think of this as a subtraction problem is like this. Think of these as numbers. So the couples therapy right here, this represents a number. It represents the mean or the average score for the couples therapy group on argument resolution. Okay, that's what this represents. And same for this, and same for this. This one represents the individual therapy group's average score on argument resolution. Same thing here. This represents the control group's average score on argument resolution. Okay? So now what we need to do, we need to figure out how we read this to determine how we need to write our results. So for the couples therapy group, the way that we will figure out if they are significant or not, we need to look at, so we're looking at couples compared to individual. And so it starts with the left. Whatever's on the left is being compared to whatever's on the right. So the subtraction comes in. Let's think of these as numbers, and we'll use simple ones to help us to kind of conceptualize this. Pretend that couples therapy is the number 100. Pretend that the individual therapy, this represents the number 50. This is subtracted from this. So whatever's on the left, pretend that this actually represents 100 minus 50. And that will equal 50, which is a positive number. Now the reason that this is significant, okay, is because if it were reversed, if it was 50 minus 100, this would be a negative number. So that is how we know which one of these was higher. So because our couples therapy and individual therapy were compared and couples therapy was first, we got a positive number. So what that tells us is that the couples therapy had a higher score, a higher average score on argument resolution than the individual therapy. And this is the mean difference. Okay? So think of this as the 100 minus 50, and it gave us a positive number. So the next thing that we also need to look at is the sig, the p-value. And for a post hoc table, there's a p-value for every comparison. So for the couples therapy minus the individual therapy average score, we've got the mean difference, or the MDiff, when you report your results. And then we want to scoot on over to the sig, and it's 0.145. So what this means is there were not significant differences between the couples therapy and the individual therapy group. Okay? So now we need to look at couples compared to control group. So couples minus control group. That gave us a positive 21, which tells us that the couples therapy group had a higher average score than the control group. And there's a star here, which usually tells us that there is significance, but we also need to look, and look, it's 0.001, which is significant. So now we get into how to type up our post hoc. So I'm going to pull this back up. So here we are. We've written our first two sentences. Now we need to write follow-up Chef A post hoc tests indicate that, and what did we find? The couples therapy group, the average argument resolution score for the couples therapy group was higher than the control group. Okay, so we indicated that. Oops, spelling wrong today. Okay, so I've written here, follow-up Chef A post hoc tests indicated that the couples therapy average score on argument resolution was significantly higher, and I should say couples therapy groups average score on argument resolution was significantly higher than the average argument resolution score in the control group. So we've got to kind of prove it here, and we've got to tell them what we had. So what I'm going to do is pull both of these up at the same time. So for our MDiff, let's see, couples minus control. So we need to report our mean difference, and that's 21. So here we're going to put MDiff, or MDiff, equals 21. Then we need to put a comma and also report our p-value, which we looked at before and we found that it was 0.001. Okay? So we've compared the couples to two of these, but we also need to look at the control and the individual therapy and look and see if they are also, there are significant differences there as well. So we'll come down here. We see we've got individual, so let's see what it looks like compared to the control group. So you guys see how I'm doing that? I look at the left, and then I look at what it's being compared to on the right. So individual minus the control is positive, which tells us that the individual therapy is higher, but is it significantly higher? So let's go over to our p-value, which is 0.091, and it is not significantly higher. Okay, that's not significant. So the way that you would finish writing these results would be, there were not significant differences on argument resolution scores between the couples therapy group and the individual therapy group, because remember we saw that earlier, that the couples minus individual was not significant, and our MDiff for this one is 9.88. Okay, and our p-value for that one is this, the 0.145. And then you would write, there were also not significant differences between the individual therapy group and the control group. And our MDiff for this, we'll come down here and look at that comparison. It's going to be 11.13. comma, and the p-value, which is 0.091. And you're done, guys. That's how you write post hoc results. So this should be everything. So I'm going to stop now and let us know if you've got any questions. We'll be happy to help.